and how the life of a little girl with a rare genetic syndrome has been turned around. The life of a very sick little North Coast girl has been completely turned around. The family is hoping her remarkable story can help fast-track the legalisation of medicinal cannabis.
8-year-old Deisha is vibrant and cheeky with attitude to match her age, and her family couldn't be more thrilled. The day she was born, she was diagnosed with a rare genetic syndrome.
When she was about 3, she'd already had 9 operations at that stage, and when she was 3, she developed a rare form of epilepsy called continuous spiking slow-wave sleep syndrome.
She was on high doses of strong medication, yet her dad David says her condition grew worse every year, with more than 500 seizures every day. One lasted an hour. Through the night she was monitored. This is the heart-wrenching moment she stopped breathing. In February, they met a doctor in Nimbin who specialises in medicinal cannabis. So she began taking CBD cannabis oil, which is THC-free. The family saw dramatic results after 3 days. Within 4 weeks, the seizures had stopped and she hasn't had another one since. 5 months on, and today, seizure-free with a little personality starting to come out.
She can now read, she can write, she puts sentences together, she's becoming very self-independent.
David is thrilled the Prime Minister is supporting the legalisation of medicinal cannabis, but says no further testing should be necessary.
Those studies have all been done. We don't have to go back and do study after study after study. It's just wasting time and costing lives.
It's a sentiment echoed by medical cannabis producer Tony Bauer, who also agrees it should be available for all sufferers, whether they're deemed terminally ill or not.
Even the cancer patients I look after, they don't, they're not classed as terminal, because terminal means you have a set term in your life to live.
Sky Carl in Coffs Harbour, Prime 7 News.
But first up, the New South Wales government has announced a clinical trial for the medical use of marijuana, making its legal use just one step closer in the state. Now, a working group has been formed to set up the trial. It's going to look at ways to address issues of supply and distribution and then report back at the end of the year. The government is also moving to formalise police guidelines so that people who possess small amounts of cannabis will not be charged if their name is on a register of terminally ill patients. Now, New South Wales Premier Mike Baird has told Parliament, that he was really touched by the plight of terminally ill Tamworth man Daniel Haslam. You see, Daniel has bowel cancer, and he's found that during the course of his treatment, cannabis offers him some relief to the nausea, to the vomiting, and his poor appetite, which is caused by the chemotherapy. Now, Mike Baird when visited the family and said that if it was his wife or his son, he'd do exactly the same. Joining me this morning is David Stevens. He's a former Coffs Harbour Citizen of the Year, and his daughter Deisha uses cannabis oil. David, welcome to Brekkie.
Thank you.
Let's start with Deisha's story. She has a rare type of epilepsy.
Yes. Yeah. Deisha, she also has a rare genetic syndrome as well. Her epilepsy started to develop when she was 3, and it just developed and got every 6 months. You saw huge dramatic changes, and the epilepsy got worse and worse to the point where we were finding her in bed, lifeless, not breathing. We had multiple trips to hospital, or nearly weekly trips to hospital. She would end up in ICU. We were having 60-minute tonic-clonic seizures, which are very life-threatening, and to the point that and all conventional medicine anticonvulsants were not working. She was regressing. She couldn't read. She couldn't speak. You would have to toilet train her every 6 months because she would forget how to do that, because that constant brain damage was just destroying her brain. And she was walking around like a zombie.
No, poor little thing. So who put you onto cannabis oil?
Basically, I started doing my research in February this year. She was on at that time. She was on 7 anticonvulsants 4 times a day. They weren't working, so they put her on prednisone, which is a very, very nasty steroid with huge side effects like stroke, kidney failure, liver failure, and possible death. She didn't even respond to that, and we were basically left to bring our little girl home and just watch her to continue to regress, or, God forbid, she would pass away from one of these seizures. I couldn't sit by and let that happen. I had seen, some media and information on medicinal cannabis and how it had it used in America and in parts of Europe for kids with intractable epilepsy. I did my research, and conveniently at that time, the NIMB and Mardi Gras were having a medicinal cannabis forum. So we decided to trek up there to find out more about this, and we found a doctor up there who had been involved with medicinal cannabis for children and intractable epilepsy. He saw Deisha, we spent some time with him, and then he got us a supply of high CBD medicinal cannabis. And within 3 days of Deisha actually taking the CBD cannabis oil, we were seeing effects that we couldn't even believe, to a point now where she's been on it for 6 months, and she's got no seizure activity whatsoever. She can now read, she can write, she can hold a complete sentence, which was just impossible before. In one word, she's alive. She's just a bubbly, full of energy 8-year-old girl, which is what she should be, rather than being that in the position she was at the start of this year.
That is extraordinary. Okay.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Does it have a psychotropic effect?
No, it doesn't. We see, with the kids with intractable epilepsy, it's a high CBD cannabis oil, and it does not contain the THC component to give them that effect. So, yeah, there's no worries and there's no moral problems with that whatsoever.
Okay. So where do you stand legally, though?
Legally, well, basically, the oil itself is legal because it doesn't contain that THC component, which is that thing that gives everybody who uses it recreationally the high. So it's totally safe and non-toxic for kids that way.
So it's legal?
The oil itself is. Where the problem is anybody can't actually get a seed and grow and cultivate the plant to actually manufacture the oil. That's where it is illegal for the kids, which is different to what Mike Bedd's done at the moment with people who have cancer and terminal illnesses. They need that THC component to help them through the nausea and the, things like that.
Yeah, like what we heard with this young man with bowel cancer, just, to build his appetite, to stop with the nausea. Okay, so what do you think of this announcement which happened yesterday? Mike Baird saying, well, let's give this a go. Let's trial it.
Look, it's a good move. It's a step in the right direction. But once again, it's just forming a committee to look at the situation, which something needs to be done. I totally agree with that. But there are other studies that are done, because it's legal in 26 states in America. It's legal in countries in Europe. So a lot of that research has already been done. But definitely a step in the right direction, and I think that's a great move. But once again, the problem with that, it doesn't include children with intractable epilepsy, which is my biggest concern.
Yeah, okay. So why do you think it needs to include them?
Because basically, 30% of children with epilepsy don't respond to the conventional anticonvulsants. That 30% is what Deisha was part of, and conventional medicine don't have an answer for them. I mean, brain surgery wasn't an option for Deisha, the special diet wasn't an option, and none of those anticonvulsants work. The other thing with normal anticonvulsants is the side effects. We were told with the prednisone that she could have stroke, and as I said before, all those nasty things. There is no toxic side effects with CBD cannabis oil. Yeah.
Hey, just another question.
Yep.
I was reading today about how one of the All Blacks is considering moving to LA because, one of his family members he believes, cannabis in order, for treatment, medicinal use of cannabis. We've seen Will Anderson do the same. He's got a form of osteoarthritis. He's moved to LA so that he can get the relief that he needs. Do you think that you and your family, I mean, if you weren't allowed to use this, would you consider moving to another country in order to help your daughter?
Absolutely. I mean, even if I know other states like ACT and that are drawing up bills at the moment, which does include different parts of what the bill that they're doing in Queensland, or the one they're going to looking at doing in New South Wales. So, look, first of all, I don't really want to leave the country. I don't want to leave our home. My daughter's grown up here. But if it means her survival, well, you'd go to the end of the earth for it.
All right. Great to get your story on the radio this morning. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That's David Stevens, former Coffs Harbour Citizen of the Year and father to Deisha, 8-year-old Deisha. Just touching on the announcement by Mike Baird about that getting one step closer to legalising medicinal use of marijuana.